Hi, I'm Tim Bradner. Welcome to Capital News. And we're here today with Nils Andreassen, the Executive Director of the Alaska Municipal League. Thanks for joining us, Nils.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
It's been a rough year for municipalities, and you represent all of them, or most of them, Nils. How are things right now? We've gone through a bad year with the virus, a lot of problems in dealing with that. Um, what's the situation this spring? Hopefully
Yeah.
things are improving.
I think the reality is that we're not through this yet. Local governments were forced into really hard decisions over the last 9-10 months. Public health decisions responding to an economic crisis. All of those are still front and center and on the minds of municipal officials.
Have did the CARES Act funding help with offsetting the impact of most COVID expenses? What about lost revenues? There's a concern that not all of the lost revenues could be recouped.
Right. The CARES Act was instrumental in allowing local governments to get, to one, support emergency operations, and two, the majority of local governments' CARES Act funds went out in the forms of financial assistance to businesses and individuals. Local governments haven't been made whole through that process. Many of them spent down from emergency reserves early on and throughout in the face of declining sales tax and bed tax and other types of revenue. The vetoes from last year, school bond debt reimbursement, reductions to community assistance, all of those things, really combined to make this last year extremely challenging for the majority of Alaska's local governments.
Nils, is there anything in the new federal legislation that will help ease this? Is there new?
Yeah, there's the extension in this latest round of legislation from Congress. There's an extension of the CARES Act funding. It came a week before the last deadline, and I think we'll find that 95% of all funds had already been expended by then. So it really means that local governments are going to be looking to, and I think it's going to be critical for Congress to respond to local governments who are going to need additional financial support from the federal government in another round of funding sometime in 2021.
Of course, we have a new federal administration, but is it likely that there will be significant new funding coming? Is your sense?
Yeah, I think the Biden administration has proposed an additional round of funding for state and local relief. The latest numbers that I saw were somewhere around $350 billion. That does have to work its way through Congress, as we know, and there's no certainty as to what Alaska's allocation from that would be. And it really depends on the different criteria that is used in allocating those funds to states and local governments. But it's critical that it allows for local governments to make up for lost revenue. I think that'll be hands down the number one priority for Alaska's cities and boroughs.
And that wasn't clear the last time around. There was some ambiguity.
That's right. You're right. And I think it was, I think it ended up being very clear that local governments couldn't use CARES Act funding for lost revenue. And that means they enter into this next budget cycle with decreased revenues and really challenging fiscal circumstances. That means looking at continued spending down of reserves, lack of investment in capital projects, looking at reduced or eliminated programs, reductions to staff, new or increased taxes. All of those will be on the table this year.
And I would think the lost sales tax revenue from the lost tourist season is a particularly hard impact, particularly in Southeast Alaska.
Yeah. Communities experience the pandemic and the economic crisis really differently. And those who depend on a tourism or travel industry and season, you'll see that their economics, their budgets are more harmed by this last year than others. And so you can see kind of a variation amongst municipalities, anywhere from a 1 or 2% increase in revenue, where federal assistance buoyed those regions, to 90% lost revenue for some communities whose doors will close this next year if that doesn't rebound.
So we have a danger that some municipalities will actually have to close their doors.
I think we face that risk. There are many communities that are really dependent on an active tourist season, and when cruise ships don't show up, and when there aren't independent travelers or otherwise, it really significantly hampers their ability to meet state obligations that have been set out.
Well, that's interesting. Interesting issue. What happens when there just is no municipality suddenly?
Right.
What sort of things?
And a municipality that probably right now has obligations to support public education or provide a police force, and its entire revenue base is eliminated. This next year we'll face some really difficult decisions that are going to have to be really relevant for state decision making as it applies thinks about its next steps for the FY22 budget, and we hope for support from the federal government.
Well, very difficult times, and we're kind of in a new territory. Well, Nils, thank you very much for taking a few minutes with us, and we'll visit again on municipal issues later this year. Thank you, Nils.
Thank you.